Hey guys, good morning. So we are still in chapter 3 of this book. I know that we are supposed to do this on a daily basis, but due to some reasons, I'm not able to do it consistently on a daily basis. But as much as possible, I'll try to finish this, whether it is thrice, 4 times a week or whatever. But I'll definitely try this. I'll definitely try and finish this book. Okay. So we are still in chapter 3 of this book, which is developing intuition through the brim. And we saw a couple of stories in terms of how the brim can be developed, or rather how intuition can be developed, and how brim plays a very vital role in that, right? So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is this chapter also has a subheading that basically says developing intuition through the brim, the value of anecdotes. In case if you do not know what is an anecdote, it's usually a small or an amusing story or an incident or a tale, whatever you can call it. And throughout this book, what Gopalakrishnan is trying to do is he's trying to give a lot of anecdotes from nature, actually, which you will soon start. So he's going to give a lot of anecdotes from nature and try to apply that to management. But in this particular chapter, where we say how the intuition can be developed through the brim, he is giving more anecdotes. So we saw some, in the last session, we spoke about Steve Jobs, his Harvard commencement speech and things like that. Sorry, Stanford commencement speech and things like that. And we also spoke about other ones, right? We also spoke about Sachin Tendulkar and all that, right? So we are going to look at a couple of more examples. But as I said earlier, the word anecdote is extremely important because it is talking about a storytelling kind of a thing. And suddenly, if you look at it in the past few years in management, there has been a separate designation that some companies have used called storytellers. I don't know if you're aware of that. So CEOs have been called storytellers, or there are storytellers within the organization who are supposed to motivate teams and build the dreams actually over a period of time by giving storytelling. So that's nothing but anecdotes actually. So that's exactly what Gopal is talking about. So he's going to share some more examples that will be more relevant from a management standpoint, or rather from how storytelling can be helpful for managers actually. So he says that in the 1950s, Indian tennis star Ramanathan Krishnan grew up in a tennis household. His father T.K. Ramanathan was a player of considerable merit. Is it any surprise that he grew up with tennis in his genes, and in turn he imparted it to Ramesh Krishnan, his son? Such immersion is relevant to management also. Some managers take pride in stating that they do not read management books or attend seminars. Of course, some books are avoidable and so are some seminars. However, the better ones are the waters in which managers can immerse themselves in order to enrich their brain's remote implicit memory. Such immersion has a major role in strengthening the managerial instinct. The manager's mind is like a sponge which can absorb water, but you can never be sure how much and which kind of water. Just as you would place the sponge under a running stream in the rainfall out on the meadows in just as many water-bearing places as possible, the mind and its memory too must be exposed to management anecdotes and leadership stories. Even a bonsai, incidentally, is never kept thirsty. In fact, it is watered with sprinklers to simulate rain. So that's why it's important for managers to attend management, programs, seminars, forums and things like that, because it enriches their brim actually. The other thing he's also giving as an example is he's saying in the 1940s, the Indian statesman and politician Rajaji wrote a series of weekly chapters on the great Indian epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. These were finally put together as a book. So he says, to this day, the book sells very well. Its longevity demonstrates the value and durability of stories and emotion. Think of the best lessons you have learnt about soft subjects like character, self-esteem and honesty. Almost always, the lesson is associated with an anecdote from your own experiences or an interaction with somebody you respect or a story told by somebody. That's true, right? As kids, when we grew up, we were told a lot of stories from Mahabharata. and Ramayana, which helped us to get some basic values, principles, and things like that, right? So storytelling is extremely important. And then he says there are traditions of storytelling in India that have evolved over the centuries. For example, the Jatra in rural Bengal, the Upanyasam in Tamil Nadu, and the Harikatha in the north are regional expressions of education and entertainment rolled in one. This is so in other countries too. So he says, like, India, there are other countries where storytelling is followed. Even to this day, as dusk settles in Marakah, storytellers emerge in the market square of Jama el Fena, holding the attention of several hundreds each evening. Your memory invariably carries a narrative in which some idea is interlocked with an emotion. That's why films are so relevant to us, right? I mean, why do we watch a film? Forget about the grandeur, forget about what kind of sets they use, the actors and everything. That's all there. But at the end of the day, the film tells a story, right? That is why films most of the time inspire us. Real stories, real life things are taken and made into real stories, and then different people think of different stories and then make them into films. And when we watch the film, we get so engrossed in the story and we get so interested in it, right? So that's the power of story. That is why stories are a very important way of teaching and imparting knowledge, especially on fuzzy and complex subjects. When it comes to ethical and religious studies, subjects such as good character, good citizenry, and good social values, and so on, storytelling is effective. And then he says, a big part of a CEO's job is to motivate people to reach certain goals. To do that, he or she must engage their emotions, and the key to their hearts is a story. And successful CEOs know that they cannot thrive by selling pipe dreams or by communicating via spin doctors. They must engage with their managers, looking them in the eye and say, we will be lucky as hell if we get through this, but here is what I think we should do. And they will listen to him. And then he talks about a lot of things about how much of such scenarios he has witnessed in his own experience, like the places he worked, Eta Dairy, Lever Exports in Hindustan Lever, Unilever Arabia, Tata companies everywhere. So he says, getting the best out of the people who know the business well is so very important, yet one needs to do so at a time when they are least motivated to open up and share their views. And he also says that lot of people who have believed that analytical was good and anecdotal was bad have changed that, they have changed after a point of time, that telling stories has been very, very effective. One example he gives, he says, Stephen Denning, who was working for the World Bank, says that he found it an uphill task to persuade his World Bank colleagues to accept knowledge management through his logical PowerPoint presentations. He then told them a 150-word story about a health worker in Zambia. It brought out a human perspective packed with emotion about grassroots level problems as perceived by the worker. He was amazed that his audience at the World Bank was now connecting. So that's the power of story. So for your own teams and things like that, even if you go and give a standard management lecture and things, that kind of things, it may not really work well. But when you talk about a story, I'm pretty sure it works. In fact, we have seen this in many times in daily thought itself, right? When you write a story about something, when you share a story about somebody, the connect is more. I have personally seen that based on the responses that I have got for the daily thoughts. In a story, you not only weave a lot of information into the telling, but you also arouse your listeners' emotions and energy. Storytelling is related to management. But why anecdotes and stories about animals, plants, and nature? Nature provides fascinating anecdotes. So he is basically starting to say that he's going to talk about nature more and stories from nature that will be more relevant to management. So he says, there is a fascinating research about how favorable human beings feel to savanna grasslands as compared to rainforests and deserts. People in the age group of 8 to 80 years were shown pictures of various such environments and they were asked which one they would prefer. The young ones with unconditioned minds invariably preferred the savanna, the environment of our ancestors millions of years ago. The children's psychological makeup seemed to carry some genetic memory about their evolutionary homeland. The great Africa specialist Richard Leakey has commented that the vast majority of people who come to Africa feel something they feel nowhere else. They feel they are home. So he says nature leaves people with a lot of memorable impressions. What is memorable may vary from person to person, but almost everybody is strongly influenced by watching nature at work. There are many beautiful things to discover in nature. There are perhaps as many horrid things that happen too. Some people love nature, its perils and battles, its struggles and its magic. Others get completely put off by the aggression required to survive and the ruthlessness directed at other species. However, it is good to recall that both the beauty and the horror are judged by human standards, something that the ethologist would not do. Basically, ethology is a subject that teaches us to look closely at the lives of animals around us. But in every sense, there is poetry in nature, a poetry that combines an idea with an emotion. Anyway, these are general stuff I'm just reading out here. So the most important thing to take from here is, he says, different species can use pretty sophisticated means of communication among themselves, ranging from the language of tails and ears among canines, scent trails laid down by caterpillars, electrical discharges of fish to duets by gibbons. Their lives are probably as complex as our own, and their skills are, within their context, perhaps as extensive as ours. So though I am reading out from the book, what he is trying to say is, animals give signals to their own species for danger or for any other reason. So he says that canines, basically dogs, actually use their tails and ears for signals, and then caterpillars lay down scent trails for others to track, for their own species to track. And then he says fishes actually give electrical discharges, and gibbons, which are type of a monkey, actually do duets actually. So there are a lot of signals that animals give, he says. More importantly, we can see some of our own behavior patterns mirrored in animals, leading to the sober realization that, in a sense, humans too are animals. Okay. So he ends it here actually. So he's going to start off with anecdotes from nature and apply it to management. So the next chapter will start with, the title of the chapter is Learning What Is Not Taught, and the subtitle is The Nature of Management. So I'll stop it here, and then we will start off with nature's anecdotes from the next session. So if there is anything, write back to me. If you find anything interesting, if you want to share something, write back to me. And have a great weekend. Take care.